In the old Yoruba town of Aiyetoro, people feared one woman. Her name was Bisi, not because she was wicked, not because she was cursed openly, but because every man who married her died exactly 2 years after their wedding. No more, no less. The first husband died, smiling in his sleep. The second drowned in water shallow enough for a child to stand in. The third screamed at midnight that someone was standing beside their bed. Then his neck snapped before morning. By the fourth husband, nobody attended her wedding anymore. Children hid when she passed. Women spat on the ground after mentioning her name. And the elders whispered, "A woman does not bury four husbands unless death sleeps in her shadow." But Bisi loved deeply. That was the tragedy. She never wanted any of them to die. Each burial broke her a little more. By the time her fourth husband died, she stopped looking into mirrors, because every time she did, she saw somebody standing behind her, tall, dark, without eyes, watching, waiting. 2 years later, Bisi met a kind trader named Adewale. Unlike the others, who was not afraid of rumors, he laughed when villagers warned him. "Death comes for everybody," he said. "At least, let it find me loved." For the first time in years, Bisi smiled again. They married, quietly, and for one whole year, nothing happened. No nightmares, no shadows, no whispers. Bisi began believing the curse had ended, until the dreams returned. Every full moon, she saw a river filled with candles floating on black water. And standing in the river was a child. The child always asked the same question: "Why did your mother promise you away?" Then one night, on the road home from the market, Bisi saw a madman dancing alone under a tree. His hair was filled with feathers and dirt. He laughed at invisible people. Villagers avoided him. But the moment he saw Bisi, he stopped laughing completely. His face became serious, too serious. He pointed directly at her stomach and said, "Death has counted again." Bisi froze. The madman came closer. His eyes were white like smoke. "5 husbands," he whispered, "and the 5th will die before the next harvest." Bisi began trembling. "How do you know me?" The madman laughed, not like a human, like several voices laughing together. Then suddenly he spoke calmly. "Your mother sold your shadow before you were born." The wind stopped. Even the insects went silent. Bisi felt cold all over. The madman leaned close enough for her to smell ashes on his breath. "But there is still a way." The madman told her something strange, something impossible. Every full moon, she must go to an abandoned shrine outside town and burn a white candle until sunrise. And once, every month, she must travel to another town where nobody knew her, tear her clothes, rub ash on her face, pretend to be mad, steal food from market stalls, then secretly give the stolen food to hungry street children. If she ever missed even once, her husband would die. Bisi stared at him in horror. "That makes no sense." The madman smiled. "The gods that protect life are not always sane." Then he added quietly, "And never let your husband follow you." Before she could ask more questions, the madman began screaming at the sky and rolling in the mud like an animal. People gathered, but when they looked back, he was gone. Completely gone. Bisi obeyed. Every full moon, she disappeared into the night, carrying candles. Every month, she traveled to strange towns, pretending to be insane. She stole bread, yams, fruit, and gave them to abandoned children sleeping under bridges and beside gutters. Some children called her the ghost mother. Others kissed her hands. Years passed, and Adewale remained alive, longer than any husband before him. But survival came with a price. Bisi herself began changing. Sometimes she laughed alone. Sometimes she heard footsteps behind her, even in empty rooms. And every full moon, the shadow without eyes appeared closer, watching, waiting.
One night, after lighting her candle near the shrine, Bisi heard singing by the river. A woman sat beside the water, combing hair so long it touched the ground. She wore white beads around her ankles, and though she looked young, the woman smiled before Bisi spoke. "You finally came." Bisi stepped back. "Who are you?" The woman ignored the question. Instead, she asked, "Do you know why your husbands die?" Bisi whispered, "No." The woman dipped her fingers into the river. The water turned red for a moment. Then she began telling a story. "Many years ago, your mother was married to a wealthy hunter. One day, the hunter discovered his closest friends had stolen money from him. Before he could expose them, they killed him, then blamed his pregnant wife. Your mother collapsed at the edge of the river, soaked by rain and covered in blood and mud. Her body ached, her spirit was shattered. The villagers had dragged her through the streets like a criminal after her husband's death. His so-called friends had murdered him for the money they owed, then blamed her before anyone could question them. Now she had nothing, no home, no family, no justice, only the unborn child growing inside her. Thunder rolled across the sky as she stared into the black water. Then she screamed with every pain inside her soul, "Avenge me. Destroy the men who did this to me. I will give my unborn child to serve you for 1 year." The river suddenly became silent. No movement, no sound. Even the rain seemed afraid. Then slowly, a woman rose from the water, beautiful, terrifying. Her white clothing floated like smoke around her body, and her long dark hair moved as though unseen hands were touching it beneath the river. Your mother trembled. The spirit smiled gently, but her eyes were ancient, hungry. When she spoke, her voice sounded like whispers from deep underwater. 1 year, the spirit laughed softly. The sound made the trees bend unnaturally. You ask for blood, lives, vengeance, and offer me only 1 year. Your mother lowered her head fearfully. It is all I can bear to give. The spirit floated closer. Now the river itself seemed to move with her breathing. No, the spirit whispered, "The child will belong to me forever." Lightning struck nearby. Your mother cried instantly. "No, please, she is innocent." The spirit's smile widened slightly. "So were you." Your mother fell to her knees, shaking violently. "Please, please, take something else." The spirit leaned forward until her face was inches away. For a brief second, a beautiful face flickered, and underneath it was something ancient, something smiling with too many teeth. Then it vanished. The spirit touched your mother's stomach gently. The unborn child kicked violently once, twice, then silence. The spirit closed her eyes as though listening to something inside the womb. Then finally she spoke. 10 years. Your mother looked up slowly. What? When the child becomes an adult, 10 years of servitude to me. No refusal, no escape, no broken promises. Your mother sobbed quietly, but somewhere deep inside the forest, men suddenly began screaming, one after another. The vengeance had already begun. The spirit smiled knowingly. "Choose quickly," she whispered. "Their deaths have already started." Your mother squeezed her stomach and cried. Then finally, she nodded. "I accept." The spirit's smile became wider, far wider than humanly possible. The river behind her began turning dark red. "Good." She stepped backwards slowly into the water. "Go home," she whispered. "Your wish is already done." And as the spirit disappeared beneath the river, your mother failed to notice one final thing. For just a moment, the spirit had looked directly at her unborn child, not with hatred, not with anger, but with ownership. Gods do not forget bargains. The woman by the river looked directly at Bisi and finally said the name. The god who answered her was Thok. The air became heavy. Even the river stopped moving. Bisi whispered, "So all this is because of my mother?" The woman nodded slowly. "You were promised before birth, but your mother hid you instead of fulfilling the covenant." "And what about my husband's?" Bisi asked. "Thok collects what tries to keep you from him." Bisi collapsed crying. "Please, I just want a normal life." The woman's expression softened. Then she spoke carefully. "There is one final path."
The goddess stood and walked toward Bisi, but strangely, her feet never touched the ground. "You are already in service to talk through madness, candles, and feeding abandoned children. That is why your current husband still breathes." Bisi's voice shook. "What else can I do to be free?" The goddess looked toward the moon, then said, "Your next child." The child will serve the gods for 10 years after becoming an adult, not as a slave, but as one who walks between worlds. Bisi began crying harder. "No! If you refuse," the goddess continued, "your husband dies before the next full moon." The wind suddenly howled through the trees, and from somewhere deep in the forest, something laughed. Not human, not animal, ancient, waited. The goddess leaned close and whispered, "Some debts are inherited, some promises outlive blood, and some gods never release what was once offered willingly." Then she smiled sadly. "Choose carefully, Bisi." The candle beside the river suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed everything, and somewhere behind Bisi, footsteps approached slowly from the water. And they say that in some villages, on nights of the full moon, a ragged woman still walks through markets pretending to be mad, stealing food only to give it away to hungry children. And if you follow her, you may see another figure walking behind her, tall, black, without eyes.
But the story did not end at the river that night, because Bisi was not the first child promised to Thok. And somewhere deep inside the forests of Aiyetoro, there are others, children born with shadows that do not belong to them, children whose reflections blink before they do, children who hear whispers calling their names from rivers at midnight. And as for Bisi's final choice, some say she accepted the bargain. Others say she tried to run. But in the next story, you will discover what truly happens when a god comes to collect a debt generations have tried to escape. Stay tuned, and do not leave before the next tale begins, because the river still remembers. Like, share, and subscribe.